solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to KBLA Talk 1580. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. Good afternoon on this Tuesday. I hope you've had a wonderful day because I'm happy to be here with you, filling in this afternoon's drive time this week on KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks for welcoming me on the West Coast. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. and welcome each and every one of you on Tuesday afternoon drive. Perhaps you're on the 101, the 405, maybe on La Cienega or passing the Heights. Shout out to you and your family as you make your way home safely. In this hour, I'm going to be welcoming Dr. Niambi Carter, who's PhD in political science from Duke University, working primarily in the area of American politics with a specific focus on race and ethnic politics, black politics, public opinion, and political behavior. Her book, American While Black, African Americans, Immigration, and the Limits of Citizenship, is a very important book to the dialogue that we are having in this country at this hour. I want to touch on one major news story that's dominating the news, and that is the controversial nomination of Matt Gaetz to be the next Attorney General of the United States. Apparently, a computer or some files were hacked at the ethics office, and part of his ethics report has been released and accessed, raising all kinds of questions about leaks. But suffice it to say, there seems to be some corroboration based upon the House Ethics Committee on some of the issues that trouble his nomination. And it's going to be fascinating to watch. I say fascinating because when I was in the Congress of the United States, I had an ethics issue dating back to 2008. I resigned from Congress of the United States after 17 years of Congress and service to my constituents. My Ethics Committee report was released. They found probable cause, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. There was no association of guilt with me trying to succeed Barack Obama as the senator from the state of Illinois. But they released my report. And now the Speaker of the House of Representatives is trying to do everything within his power to keep Matt Gaetz, who resigned from Congress, to keep his report from being released. And so there are two standards here, and we're going to talk about that today. But before we do, I always try to begin these programs with a framework. I call it the framework. For Dr. Carter, who will be joining us shortly, I want to establish again for our listeners a historical framework. This quote from Peter Applebaum: "Think of a place that's bitterly anti-government and fiercely individualistic, where race is a constant subtext to daily life, and God and guns run through public discourse like an electric current. Think of a place where influential scholars market theories of white supremacy, where the word liberal is a negative epithet, where hang 'em high law and order justice centered on the death penalty and threw away the key sentencing are politically all but unstoppable. Think of a place obsessed with states' rights as if it were the 1850s all over again and the Civil War had never been fought. Such characteristics have always described the South. Somehow, they now describe the entire nation. Peter Applebaum in Dixie Rising. Two central issues have dominated this country from its beginning. The first is the relationship between the federal government and the states. That question has been with us since before the writing of the Constitution in Philadelphia in 1787, through the Supreme Court's first major decision in 1793, Chisholm versus Georgia, during the antebellum period of the 1800s through 1860, through the Civil War and post-Civil War periods. It obviously remains an active issue today. We watched with our own eyes women who had rights under Roe versus Wade have those rights stripped away from them. The second issue that has plagued the United States is race. It is the central dilemma in our nation's history and has haunted us since 1619. What is the proper balance between the national and state governments? Are we 50 nation states that voluntarily participate in a national federation but can ignore or withdraw from that federation at any time? Or are we one nation with a national common law that is indivisible with liberty and justice for all? These were perplexing questions and troublesome questions for the founders of this country and for the first 3/4 of a century of our existence, and they still trouble us today. In a real sense, it was the Civil War that converted us from a federation to a union. The issue of the Negro. The common belief, of course, is that we are the latter, but in fact we are the former. In practice, too often, we still try to operate more like states' rights. For some, not building a more perfect union appears to be the goal, downsizing the role of the federal government. That's why Donald Trump picked Matt Gaetz. The revolution of devolution ideology practiced by Speaker Newt Gingrich was brought to the national political scene in such a forceful way following their takeover of the Congress in 1994, deconstructing the administrative state, as Trump's chief strategist, Stephen K. Bannon, articulated in 2017. All of these are obstacles to achieving national goals. It will be impossible to build a more perfect union until the ideology of states' rights and its legacy of devolution are defeated politically. I find it fascinating that after 9/11, every state controlled their own local airport security. On some states, you could take a bottle of water on. Other states, you could take any kind of liquid on a plane. But when we were attacked on September 11th, the federal government took control of every airport in the nation and established one national standard. And that's why men and women with blue shirts on and badges and dark pants inspect everything that enters the aviation system. Not even a bottle of water can make it onto a plane in the United States. But when it comes to building schools and building health care and building housing and providing the end of poverty in the United States, for some reason or another, we take it one city, one state, one county at a time, and we are therefore incapable of establishing a national standard of common laws for all of the people. The biggest losers of that will always be African Americans. In other words, during the American Civil War, the cause of the war itself, the cause of the national government itself, became one and the same with the struggle of black people in America. For the first time the Constitution was amended in any significant way beyond the Bill of Rights was the overcoming of state-centered federalism, that is, states' rights, with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. In short, if slavery is a state's right, then states' rights cannot be human rights. We must overcome the limitation of slavery and states' rights by establishing new human rights. And that, in the final analysis, is really the long march towards justice for African Americans. As I prepare to close out the first segment of this and bring in Dr. Niambi Carter, I want to remind you just how significant this history is. From 1776, July 4th, the writing of the magnificent words of the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. On that July 4th, until July 4th, 1863, there were 87 July 4ths. From that moment forward, that battle in Gettysburg, where the states' rights activists were defeated and 50,000 people lie dead or wounded on a battlefield in Gettysburg, there have been 160 July 4ths that are different than what Jefferson understood and different than what Jefferson even conceived. It would be Abraham Lincoln that would establish the new standard. We're going to talk about that new standard for equal rights when we come right back. We'll come back forward in just a moment. KBLA Talk 1580. We'll be back with Niambi Carter.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Bad Ash Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you lay awake at night worrying about what to buy everyone on your holiday list? Yeah, it's stressful. And half the time you don't even get the right thing. Well, Skechers is here for a holiday rescue with hands-free Skechers slip-ins, the right gift for everyone on your list. Think about it. People love their shoes. And once they try hands-free Skechers slip-ins, it takes that love to a whole new level. Why? Because with hands-free Skechers slip-ins, you just step into them and they're on. There's no bending down, no touching your shoes, no retying laces. Plus, Skechers slip-ins are perfect for everyone. Moms, dads, grandparents, kids, friends, coworkers. Just sneak into their closet, get their shoe size, and you're good to go. Plus, they come in everyone's favorite styles and colors, from sneakers to casual shoes, even winter boots. And they look so stylish, and they're the most comfortable shoes they'll ever wear. So, this season, save time, quit your worrying, and get everyone on your list hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Holiday crisis averted. Now go get some rest. Find them for the holidays at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Our live line is 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. I would love to have your calls. Dr. Naimbi Carter. Her work has appeared in the Journal of Politics, National Review of Black Politics, Political Psychology, Politics, Groups and Identities, and many others. She is the recipient of a number of fellowships and awards from organizations such as the Ford Foundation's Predoctoral Fellowship, the Consortium for Faculty for Diversity, and Predoctoral Fellowship. Dr. Carter, welcome to KBLA.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Carter, how did we get here? Please help us during this drive time. How did we get here?
Oh, goodness. I wish I could say I could give you a singular answer, but I think we've been trending in this direction for a while. I think, unfortunately, when you see progress in this country, sometimes it's often accompanied by 5 steps back. And I think, you think about the work of my colleague, Vesla Weaver, who talked about, front lash. And she was talking about this, some time ago, but the concept basically is this idea that we don't get a post-action reaction, that the counter force to our political progress is already in process, right? By the time, we get to these great milestones. So when you think about, she's talking about crime and punishment, but when we think about civil rights progresses, when we think about what we saw with the election of Barack Obama, we already saw, kind of the scene that was being set for where we are right now. Is that the forces of old, if we can call them that, don't actually want to see things change. And so what they do is they try to figure out how they can get the world back the way they want it. And you talked about this timeline. But we think about, the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 64, all these really important pieces of legislation that came through 1964 and 65, including the Immigration and Nationalization Act at that point. And what did we find? The right very quickly was trying to figure out what would be their issue. They tried school busing. That wasn't really working. And then they finally got to abortion. And they used abortion, right, and this sort of notion of family and these, traditional notions of family to kind of move the needle back on those civil rights progresses. And people are like, well, what's the relationship between abortion and civil rights? And it's like, it was the issue that could galvanize a lot of white people in particular kinds of ways that didn't have to talk about race, that didn't have to signal civil rights, but would nonetheless be primarily an organization of people that talked about small government principles, right? That talked about what did the Constitution mean in its original text? All of this kind of stuff to try to look like a spontaneous grassroots movement, but really was about interest in moving the needle back. So you see this sort of mixture of kind of populism and conservatism and libertarianism all mixed up together that helped to shift this country in this direction. But it's not a straight line, I should say.
When I was in Congress, I happened to be at President Barack Obama's inauguration, and noticeably absent was Mitch McConnell. At the very hour that Barack Obama was being sworn in, Mitch McConnell and Speaker Gingrich and others were having a meeting in Washington, D.C., promising 4 years of obstruction that ultimately met 8 years of obstruction of his administration. And so how do we measure and gauge what may or may not have taken place in 2024 with the idea that an African-American woman, too, could be the recipient of the kind of backlash that you just articulated?
Yeah, I think you raised something really important. Mitch McConnell was quite proud of being an obstructionist during Obama's term in office. And I definitely think those same forces were at work. I think there were definitely things to critique about the way that Democrats approached this campaign. Nonetheless, I think it would not be fair to suggest that, our own internal misogyny, because it wasn't just, men that voted against Kamala Harris. It was plenty of women, right, who don't think that this is a place for a woman. There are certainly those. You heard some of the rhetoric, right? People accused her of sleeping her way to the top.
Outrageous.
And, right, even though she's won, multiple statewide elections, she's moved her way up like a lot of political operatives do, right? From a state office to then statewide office to national office. But nonetheless, you still heard people say things like that. You heard people question her, even her laugh. People critiqued her on demonstrating joy and being present and authentic. And people said, she was too rehearsed, but then then when she was authentic, she was being inauthentic. So it was sort of like the goalposts consistently moved for Kamala Harris, unfortunately. And people chose to go with the strong man. Donald Trump does what Donald Trump does, which is the minimum. And it's like, when you see a kid, a 5-year-old, tie their shoe, and it's like, oh my God, that's amazing. It's like, he's that 5-year-old kid. He's doing something that, giving you the bare minimum. And everybody, sort of applauds because he just says, things are bad, I can fix it. What's the plan? I have concepts of one.
Let me ask this question. We've got a nice lengthy segment here, about 5 more minutes, and of course I'm going to give you all of the time that you need to finish this answer. On the question of the limits of citizenship, obviously African Americans, with the addition of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and the great struggle that it took, including the Civil War, to get to that, the history of African Americans is so central to the nation's entire debate about citizenship. And I'm not so sure, based on my read on the history, that we are allowed or in a position to ignore this debate about migration, immigration, legal or illegal, and citizenship. Can you share with us your thinking?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is kind of what my book is actually trying to grapple with, because for many reasons, Black people have a right to be skeptical about migration. In part because part of the way that other people have become fully American is by denigrating Black people, by distancing themselves from Black people, by saying we're not like those people, we're better than them, we have the right values, we work hard, right? We hear it now when people say, I'm not a victim, people complain too much about civil rights, all the other things. And that really was sort of the whiteness was the sort of carrot that was dangled in front of a lot of recent arrived people through the, 19th century and into the 20th. We can just sort of stand somewhere between whiteness but above Blackness, and we're okay. And unfortunately, Black people who are skeptical, and again, with right reason, of migrants, because nobody wants to see themselves being pushed further to the back of the line, particularly when they feel like, I'm born here, we helped build this country, right? Like your father family noted, we came here on a foreign policy. I show it to my students every year. It's important. But that kind of fear has sometimes led Blacks to do more reactionary things, right? We saw it a little bit with the Pullman car porters who were on strike. And what did the Pullman company do? Brought in Filipino laborers to undermine Black labor. But it never does us well when we engage in campaigns that are racist and white supremacist at their core. And that's always been our uneasiness as a community, as a Black community, with these sort of anti-immigrant campaigns. Because a lot of that language of, we're the real Americans, these people should speak English, and they should do this, and they should do that, don't really sit well with Black people. Because we know what it means when people tell you to leave your culture and to ignore your community and your heritage. And do we want to get the full citizenship that is our due on the backs of other people, on persecuting other people? That's not typically something Black people are willing to do. But in process of that, it does lead to some real tension. because everyone doesn't feel like if they put themselves in relationship to Black people that they can still be successful and that they still can be successful. Anti-Blackness is a global phenomenon. And there are a lot of people around the world who learn very quickly that to be a Black American is not a good thing. And when they come here, that's just amplified. You were going to say something.
Yes, I was. That there was also political strategy that was very much involved in creating a climate in Black urban communities over the course of this election cycle that I found to be somewhat fascinating, in that you had governors in Florida, governors in Texas, governors in some of the southwestern states who were literally creating a dynamic by busing and sending migrants, legal or illegal, to the inner city, creating a dynamic with Black mayors and creating a dynamic with the urban core in these deeply blue cities but surrounded by red counties, to create this kind of anti-immigration hostility amongst the people. And I'd like you to come, when we come forward from this break, to kind of share with us the manipulation of the question of citizenship, to which I believe African Americans, with the adoption of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, we ought own the dialogue on what the process is to become an American citizen. When we come back, we're welcoming your calls at 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. I am joined with Dr. Niambi Carter. We are discussing the future of our people and the future of our republic when we come forward.
Children, the little children of the world, 'cause they are strongest hope for the future, the little bitty boys and girls. We got to make this land a better land in the world.
Areva time is the right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Rapper NBA Youngboy pled guilty to his role in a drug ring posing as a doctor to obtain codeine. The plea avoids jail time as he's expected to serve a federal sentence for gun charges. Former Columbus, Ohio police officer Adam Coy, recently convicted of murdering Andre Hill, an unarmed Black man, in 2020, is requesting a new trial. Coy's defense attorneys filed the motion ahead of his sentencing set for next Monday. A man is agreeing to a $50,000 settlement of a lawsuit that accuses a Wilmar, Minnesota police officer of arresting him based on race. Derek Gilbert sued officer Christopher Flatten and the city on allegations he was illegally arrested in 2022. The American Liberties Union calls the arrest a walking while Black case. And 39 of the 43 escaped monkeys from a South Carolina research facility have been recaptured. Alpha Genesis reports the animals returned to humane traps and are in good health. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Still some big problems in Buena Park. It's a SIG alert on the 91 eastbound right before Beach Boulevard. The second lane from the left is still closed because of this earlier crash. Very slow all the way back from Artesia Boulevard. Now they're saying maybe an hour it could open, so we'll let you know. In Baldwin Park, 10 freeway eastbound before Puente. That's a crash along the center divide.
Every business faces challenges, but shipping shouldn't be one of them. Turn shipping to your advantage with USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight on Friday might not have been much of a fight, but it made a ton of money for the promoters and AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The fight set a record for boxing matches outside of Las Vegas with a gate totaling $18.1 million. A sellout crowd of 72,300 showed up to see the fight in person at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Average ticket price was $304. More than 60 million households watched the fight on Netflix. Paul won a unanimous 8-round decision over the 58-year-old Tyson. A lot of folks are hoping that's the last time we will see the former heavyweight champ put the gloves on. Lakers center Anthony Davis enters tonight's game against Utah as the NBA's #2 scorer. AD is averaging 31 31.1 points per game. Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo leads the NBA with a 32.3 average. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. Asthma Peak Week is almost here, September 15th through 21st, and it's time to pay attention. Peak Week is a critical time of the year for asthma flare-ups and can lead to hospitalization. Did you know that Black Americans are approximately 5 times more likely than white Americans to be hospitalized for asthma? Stay aware, have a plan, and spread the word on Asthma Peak Week. For more active asthma care tips, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580. This is Jesse Jackson Jr., your guest host, operating on the West Coast. My special guest, Niambi Carter, where we're discussing some of the limits of citizenship and the unique role that African Americans have played in establishing citizenship as a fundamental right for African Americans. But extensions of that citizenship have applied to nearly every immigrant and migrant that has come to the United States since the adoption of the 14th Amendment in 1867. My question before the break was, we saw governors in the states of Florida and Texas busing and flying and dropping off immigrants to major urban municipalities, really pitting the urban core African Americans against Latinos. And then we saw an election where the Latin American community did not vote for the Democratic nominee, in this case, a world historic figure in Kamala Harris. And now we are looking at the retribution of the next president of the United States, who's already setting up, we're hearing, detention camps. And it's not just limited to them, Dr. Carter. Obviously, there are naturally born citizens in the United States who benefited from the struggle of African Americans to establish the 14th Amendment in the Constitution, who are likely to be racially profiled. I mean, they need to have their birth certificates and their proof of citizenship with them at all times, even if they've been living here for 20 or 30 years, because some Karen somewhere is going to say, that person right there doesn't belong here. I'd like you to share with us your thoughts on that dynamic and just how integral we are to that conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, the thing is, most of the people who are in this country as of, the last 50 years, from Latin America, from the Caribbean, from Asia, from Africa, really are here because Black people, quite frankly. I always talk about the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Immigration and Nationality Act as a triumvirate of legislation, that you don't get really a more open environment for immigrants if you don't also have a more open environment for Black people. And what I mean by that is Black people are the bellwether of sort of where the country is. And typically when Black people are being excluded and being pushed out, that is usually not a good bellwether for other people who are not white, right? And so when we talk about the immigrant, the color of immigration changing in this country, it really changes post-1965 because of Black people. Black people make for a more expansive, a more capacious sort of understanding of what the possibilities of citizenship can be. Black people change the prototype of who could be a citizen. Because you think about it, there is no way, right, that the framers thought of formerly enslaved people ever being part of the American body politic.
That's exactly
and so
what
the advent.
That's exactly what
Yeah,
Tawny.
so
That's exactly what Tawny said in that decision. That he can't imagine them having citizenship rights. That they were never intended at the very inception. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're right. So Dred Scott, right? That's what they said. And so here we are, not even a decade after that decision, where we are forcing this country to grant citizenship to all people born or naturalized in the United States, including the formerly enslaved. Now, this is what it means on paper. Of course, people's lived reality is very different because we have another 100-year fight in front of us to even make this country acknowledge Black people, but Black people weren't going to stop. And in that time, we are also fighting for the rights of other people, because you have, folks like Frederick Douglass in the 1840s talking about, what's happening in Ireland and how that's akin to what's happening to Black folks in the U.S. You have Black folks in the convention movement all around this country talking about, well, where should we go if we want to be full people, right? If we want to be fully free, we need to exercise our right to move. Migration was a strategy for Black people. It's not something new. We've been moving for a long time. The Great Migration, I say, should be understood as a sort of internal immigration movement. We're not leaving the country, but we are. When you go from, Louisiana to Ohio, that feels like a different world, right? At different points in time. So it's really Black people who make America live up to its promise, not just for us, but for all people. Unfortunately, as you noted in your question, everybody doesn't acknowledge us in the same way, because one of the things that I think this election highlighted is that Black people consistently show up, even if we have to hold our nose, even if we don't like something, because we understand voting is not just about us individually. It's about other people. Voting is a harm mitigation strategy. It doesn't mean that you always get what you want right now. It sometimes means putting your thumb and putting your finger in the holes in the dam, plugging it up until you can get to the thing that you most want. So a lot of sometimes our jostling and our strategizing is about how do we use our citizenship, as constrained as it may be, in the most constructive way that we possibly can for the most of us? And that is extended to non-Black people too.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
They questioned Obama's citizenship. They questioned Kamala Harris's citizenship. It's almost like our progress as African Americans, certainly in the political sphere, but one could make the same argument in academics, in corporate, in the private sector, in the public sector, that our citizenship, no matter how long we have been here, and I say consistent with Dr. King, before the Declaration of Independence, we were here. Mm-hmm. Before the writing of the Constitution, we were here. Consistent with Malcolm X. We did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. We were here. But at every step along, even this new generation, they're going to have to confront the questions of citizenship. Is there any hope, Dr. Carter, for coalition?
I think there is, but I think we also have to be very realistic. I think about, Carmichael and Hamilton in Black Power. When they talk about that, I think that's an important text that people should go back to. Because one of the things they understand very well is that political coalitions should only be entered to when they are advantageous, and that when you are coming from a place of power. Nobody wants to go into a partnership with someone where they are always sort of hat in hand. And what Black people have are extraordinarily motivated and loyal voters when you can get them out, right? And it is not the case that all Black people all the time feel like participating. We are tired, and I think we heard that everywhere after 2024, either for the people who said, I'm just not excited in 2024 the way I was in 2020, or the people who said, we tried, and everybody defected, right? And not everybody, but, white women defected. Some parts of the Latino community defected. We are tired of holding this coalition up by ourselves.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
I do think that there's hope.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we will be back with Dr. Niambi Carter, who's going to continue our conversation on citizenship. We'll be coming forward shortly.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Find your red tag. Get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select popular Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Silverado, Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $2,860 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 22.2%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/2/24.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283 Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Got it, it ain't a question. Oh, it ain't no one for guessing. No more than emotionally invested. Showing you all my imperfections. Oh, if I let you, don't take me for granted.
Good evening. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm joined with Dr. Niambi Carter. We've been discussing The Limits of Citizenship, her outstanding book, American While Black, African Americans, Immigration, and the Limits of Citizenship, is a must-read for us at this hour. As we continue to move through this segment, Dr. Carter, the idea of we need 270 electoral votes in 4 years. We need a majority of people to vote for a progressive candidate, provide housing, to provide equal high-quality education and equal high-quality health care. Is there room or any hope for coalition under the present dynamic?
I think there is. I think I was saying, before break, we just have to understand that coalitions may not be forever, right? They might be for this period in time. We also have to remember that coalitions don't build themselves. We have to build them. It's not just that people are going to see common cause. We have to make those links for people. We have to show people how this matters for their life. And I think that's something sometimes we forget to do. And you don't just do it when you run, right? You do it year over year over year. When you really want to pull people in. And I think this is why, Jesse Jackson Sr.'s campaigns in 84 and 88 were so integral and so important, because that was what they did very well, was bring people into the process who might not have been there before and kept those people engaged, even in downtime, right? Because sometimes you may not win. Sometimes what you're trying to do is build the infrastructure. Stacey Abrams did that in Georgia, right? So that you actually can keep these same people mobilized and engaged. And that's the hard part, because the presidential election takes up so much oxygen that you sometimes forget that there are other important things that are also happening on the ballot. The state of Maryland, state of Delaware, elected 2 black women to the Senate. First time that ever happened. And it's almost like it didn't happen because we almost never talk about these down ballot races, because the presidential races take up so much space.
I see the coalition opportunity, and help me if I'm wrong here. It's going to be for new immigrants at the school board level. It's going to be at the county level. It's going to be at the services level. We're really going to have to rally around the people of Springfield, Ohio, in light of the misinformation campaign that soon-to-be President Trump made during his campaign about the Haitian immigrants. And I'm deeply concerned, but also with my eye on the future of the country, just how local these coalitions have to be in order to be sustained over time. And so your thoughts about, I guess, those who've articulated and advocated citizenship throughout our history. I shared with some guests yesterday that, I'm concerned that communities of like economic interest, those who are poor, those who are working, those who are struggling, those who are suffering, those who are in pain, our community through those trials and tribulations created Martin Luther King Jr. But I've not seen a Martin Luther King Jr. in these communities. I mean, I didn't see. I mean, where's the Martin Luther King of Appalachia? Where's the Martin Luther King of the Latino community advocating for, other than, let's say, a Dolores Huerta or a Cesar Chavez? But where is the next generation of those advocates, not trying to out-American the Americans, but are speaking to the legitimate interests of their people? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, those people exist. I mean, we may not be able to call them all by name, but they're there. And I do think micro-targeting is going to have to be a part of this in a way that we had not necessarily anticipated before, because all politics is local, right? Like, that's politics 101. But I think sometimes we forget that. And I think about something Lyndon Johnson said when you talked about Appalachia in particular, but other places where it's also true. He said, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket.
Absolutely.
And I think about that when, you hear people like Reverend Barber and others who are trying to create these cross-racial coalitions around class, right? In ways that, people like Senator Sanders often critiques the Democratic Party for not doing. But the difficulty is getting people who ideologically don't see class as their primary concern. They say they do, but their economic anxiety looks like racism, right? It comes out in a politics of exclusion, not in the politics of like a Dr. King, which is we need to make the tent bigger. Instead of saying we got to push people out, we got to make it possible for more people to eat, more people to sit at the table. And what we often find is when whites say economic anxiety, what they really mean is, or the way it shows up in our political world, is we have to cut some people out. Some people have to lose. Some people have to be put out of the country, right? Some people have to be disqualified from benefits. And that's a really unfortunate, I think, kind of politics of lack that has been very successful, because part of the appeal of a Donald Trump and his presidency is convincing everybody that there's not enough. There's never enough. And we know that if there's a war, there's always money, right? We can always shake the cushion for that. But when it comes to Medicaid expansion, child earned income tax credit, or the child tax credit, there's never enough, right, to support that. But there's always enough for things that don't necessarily help the most of us. And so I think we have a lack of imagination, not a lack of resources. That's going to be, I think, the biggest killer than, all of this other stuff that kind of subs for us not wanting to think bigger about who we could be, because we're afraid somebody might get something that we don't get or we don't think they should have.
And that has to be balanced, of course, against our own progress. African-American women were clearly and are clearly the most loyal base and within the Democratic Party that we can count on. But when I look at, for example, some of the candidates that are now seeking to be the head of the Democratic National Committee, it seems to be a reaction to the progress that African-American women have made as well. And I'm wondering, because I'm reflecting now in this moment, in this conversation, about another significant aspect of my father's campaigns in 84 and 88, in that it wasn't just that he ran, it was all of the people that he inspired into public life. And I'm wondering if, when I raise this question of the Martin Luther King Jr.'s in the Latino community, why is there no white Martin Luther King speaking to the Appalachian cause, beyond voting on some legislation in Congress or in the Senate or sponsoring an anti-opioid bill, but I mean a genuine homegrown leadership that wants to wipe out white poverty? Because in my mind, that when the Latino community sees this champion or sees these champions, and that's true of working class whites as well, that there will be a if you will, a new generation of people who will see the courage in that leadership to do something about it. Your thoughts, Dr. Carter?
I mean, I hope so. right? I mean, I think one of the things that has been really encouraging for me is to see all these young people who have engaged the first time the political process and are using all the levers. I mean, they are using social media and all kinds of things to reach one another in ways that I don't think we could have even imagined. I think it's also going to mean, though, and you hinted at this a moment ago, that the party leadership and other folks are going to have to not do what makes the most sense to them in this moment, which is, well, we need us a big, strong white man too, right? If we lean into that, then we'll bring back these people who were wooed by, you know, the potential for a Trump presidency. And I think that's exactly the wrong message to take away from this moment. I think if nothing else, people want some creativity. People want to see big ideas. People want to see new ideas. I mean, that's what, again, made 84 and 88 so exciting. It wasn't the traditional Washington insiders that were staffing these campaigns. It wasn't those people that were knocking on the doors. It was people who were inspired. And I think people aren't inspired right now. And you can get all the strong white men you want. It's not going to work. I think what Democrats need to really think about is who have been there. You talked about black women. Lean into black women. Lean into those sectors of the community that do show up for you time and again, instead of going after some mythical white voter who stopped voting for you in 1980 and hoping that those people are going to come back to the party. They're probably not. But you know who might come? A person who hears an inspiring message, you know, about what the economy could be. And I think Kamala Harris had that, but people are already, I think, less likely to tune in because inflation and all the things that people don't really know what it does, but they know what it does when they visit the gas station, when they visit the eggs. And hey, I thought the economy was looking pretty good, but that's from where I sit. You know, I have to also recognize there are a lot of people who right now just don't feel that. And more than vote for Donald Trump, they stayed home. And I think we have to let people, I think about this thing too. Ronald Reagan won by the margin of despair. And I think about that every time I think about this election. Donald Trump won by the margin of despair. And I think we have to watch that and be always thinking about that. It's not just about who has the best policies or who is the best ethically, clearly. It's also about people's real internal feelings of being left out, left behind, and overlooked. I just don't want black people to fall into that space because that space doesn't serve us well.
We will win
as a community.
We will win by the margin that we keep hope alive. Dr. Niambi Carter, thank you very much for joining me. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. A judge is reportedly holding an emergency hearing after Sean Diddy Combs' jail cell was raided. His lawyers claim feds seized privileged materials, including trial strategies, ahead of his May sex trafficking trial in New York. The defense begins its case in Marine veteran Daniel Penny's New York City subway chokehold trial after prosecutors arrested. Penny is accused of recklessly causing a black man, Jordan Neely's death. The defense challenges the medical examiner's findings and may call Penny's sister